Actually, this particular panel discussion is going to be mind-blowing. We've actually, before we get started, hold on. Welcome everyone. We know it's not easy to moderate with such fascinating personalities here. So we actually met about a half hour ago. We met before, but you came a little bit later, Johannes.
Did you take an Uber to get here?
Sure.
He took a taxi, Ura. But before I introduce, I just want to say this will actually be quite an interactive session. So do you have Twitter on there? Do you know that?
Yeah, my Twitter, JC Johnson.
You can send tweets to JC Johnson, or you can send tweets to me, MAMK, and we will incorporate this in the panel discussion. But right now, let's introduce who we have here. I was talking with Christoph. Christoph is sort of a serial entrepreneur. He used to work with bwin, then started Zoom Square, which is a platform. If you're looking for a place to live or a home to buy, based on your needs and desires, you're able to find that. And then we have Daniel. My mind is blanking here. Daniel is actually, he used to work with Kapsch, so he had a sort of a traditional job. Before you worked for Kapsch, you actually started a business on your own. And now you're working with Conda, which is crowd investing, not crowdfunding, crowd investing. And then we have Jason Johnson, who flew all the way here from Silicon Valley, San Francisco, to share words earlier today. And you started a company, August, which is smart homes, Internet of Things innovation.
Yeah, check it out, august.com.
Yeah.
That's my only plug.
And then we have Johannes, who is recently, he's been working with Uber the past 5 months, and we just met a couple minutes ago. So let's just get started. The title of this particular panel is You're Not the Boss of Me. And so we have 4 individuals here who sort of taken the risks in their lives to not necessarily continue with a traditional job, but to be, with that entrepreneurial spirit, start something on their own. So let's start it off with you, Christoph. What personality type does it take to start your own business?
For sure, you need a person to take risks and to love new. But what I personally really like about being an entrepreneur is following your passion. So what you love to do, where you really love to be. And I always search for people to work with me who also really love what they do and have idea about what the job gonna be and what it should be.
Yeah.
To really do something with the love, because then they're much better than someone who just does a job.
So when you say someone who's much better than just does a job, what type of personality or characteristics do you think a person needs to start their own business?
I personally love to talk to people and ask them about where they're going to be, what you would like to do. And if you help them and get them closer to their dream job or to their dream idea to really create it, there is this glow in their eyes.
Okay.
And if you talk to people and you see that glow in their eyes when they talk about what they're doing or what they want to do, then I know, okay, this is something that really is knowing where to go, or I know where they should be.
Yes. Yeah. So let me jump to Johannes, because we just met. And I was wondering, what kind of, a company like Uber, which is sort of reshaping mobility and having a huge impact, why would they hire someone like you? What makes Johannes?
It's a very fair question. But your first question, what are the sort of the characteristics? I think there are three major characteristics why you would start a new company. A would be to have a job. Because you don't get another one, which is definitely a characteristic, but probably not the best one. B would be to earn money. And C, and this is sort of relating to your question now, is to be able to change something. And this is definitely a major reason for Uber, how they recruit people. I've been an entrepreneur for the past, 12 years. Mm-hmm. And Uber is understanding that being successful means to fight existing systems. Okay. So whoever works for Uber must be pretty amazed by the idea what Uber does and must be able to stand up against these situations.
Yeah. But do you have a boss? Or are you really the boss of Austria?
Well,
are you the Uber boss?
Well, in fact, I'm my own boss, but of course there are like regional general managers. Mine is 10 years younger and sits in Milan. And obviously there are Travis and Ryan Graves in America who are very American, so very close ties, and they do have an eye on us.
Since you were talking about Uber, Jason, you mentioned that one of the investors in your company is actually one of the founders of Uber.
Yes, so Silicon Valley is actually a pretty small community, and I have like 25 angel investors, right? It's kind of a lot of investors, but all of them are great founders of companies, and a few of them are billionaires, which are always good to have as investors. And one of them, I guess Garrett is also now a billionaire. Garrett Camp is the co-founder of Uber. Just realized he's now in the billionaire club. So Garrett's a friend and one of my original investors.
Excellent. Well, Daniel, you've been an entrepreneur since you were 19. Yeah. Will you be a billionaire one day?
Well, I think it isn't that easy being a billionaire starting a business in Austria. Okay. But I'm convinced that we will succeed with Conda, because that is what's driving me for 2 years, and I think it will drive me for the next few years. So. And I also could agree to what previously was said, that we see that there are established systems, and we want to conquer these systems with crowd investing. What does so? We see a potential. We see the demand on doing that, and so we are convinced that we will be successful. But we are not doing that on getting billionaires. We are doing that because we want to change something.
Actually, when we were talking earlier, preparing for this panel discussion, one of the questions we came up with, what motivates you or drives you to take the risk that you're taking to start your own business? Or in this case, to be the country manager of a large company. So what are some personality traits do you think you have? We'll just go this way.
For me, it was really starting to do something, to having a fast innovation. Being in a big company, innovation is normally very slow. It's a side product of your normal working there, and I didn't want to do that. I always wanted to push the innovation inside of the company, but it's normally not that possible that much. And so I said, okay, I change it. I go into the startup scene. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I learned all the people here. There are some great events, and it's getting better and better in Austria. And with them, I learned what I really wanted to do. And I had my first startup, and now I have my second startup with Zoom Square. And it's a great experience and a hell lot of a ride.
Yeah, Daniel, when we were talking earlier, you had originally worked with Kapsch, and then you decided you wanted to take a risk and start your own business. What motivated you?
Yeah, well, as you said, I've started my own business, the first one already 7 years ago. So I was really into that idea that I will do another business, and that I will own my own business. So. That was the idea within my head. Then I went to Kapsch. I've done there a cool job with a good salary, but I knew that won't be the job for my life. And to be honest, Conda is based on the idea of my co-founder. So we've met on one of these cool startup events in Vienna a few years ago, and we've said, okay, we like each other. But almost 2 years ago, he asked me, okay, should we do something new? And I was impressed of the idea, and I've seen that there is a huge potential, and that was the idea for me to join and to run after for the next 2 years.
Yeah, Jason, you mentioned that in Silicon Valley where you live, it's a small community. What do you think is sort of a dominant personality trait for people who work on their own?
Yeah, so I think that the most successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley are not money motivated, actually.
Okay.
Now let me clarify that, because there is some amazingly successful entrepreneurs like like Larry Ellison, right, the CEO of Oracle. He is a money-obsessed man, and as was Bill Gates and his team at Microsoft. Very, very money-driven. These are classic salesmen, love to sell, and they love to make money for the sake of making money. But the vast majority of modern-day entrepreneurs that I interact with are really motivated to just build something that gets touched, hopefully, by millions of people, and they get a kind of a thrill out of that. And so I'm on my 4th venture capital-backed startup. So I've been doing this for a while. I'm actually 43 years old. So I built my first company in '97, sold it in '99. And I've actually seen a shift in entrepreneurs, right? So back in the 90s, when my friends and we made a lot of money, we would buy sports cars and rent private jets and go to Las Vegas and all that. It's not so much anymore. In fact, if you go buy a Lamborghini or a Ferrari and you show up at a party or something, you kind of would be made fun of. Like, you'd be like, really? You're the douchebag that drove the orange Ferrari here? It's actually not cool anymore. It's more cool if you show up in an Uber, right? All right, or a zip car that you rented for the day, right? That you're being responsible. You're not just throwing money to the oil producers. So hey, I have a sports car. Don't get me wrong. I love sports cars. But things have changed. I think more modern day entrepreneurs love to just build cool things and try to change the world.
Johannes, you're smiling. Why?
I never thought so much about sport cars yet. No, but coming back to your question, is Austria is like a museum in certain aspects.
Yeah.
So being like a very old Austrian, I would not have worked for any other company actually than Uber, for the simple reason that this is within the mobility sector. Mobility is very political, is like a sort of a secret hidden place with secret players and secret rules. And now you have the opportunity to fight against it, to be honest. And Uber, of course, I'm having the benefit of working for a brand which is well known. You don't have to introduce yourself, but you can say, this is Uber, we're trying to hit the Viennese market. People start loving us, but people start hating us. So that's a very privileged way to change things, and that was definitely my approach.
That brings up an interesting question, because what I've you're working for, let's say, an American company, and Jason, you're from the States. We were talking earlier, what would be either similarities or differences between being your own boss in North America or in Europe? Daniel, can you share some observations? I'll come back.
Well, what I've seen the last years is that one of the main differences is the approach of the founders here and in the US. In the US, people start thinking of building their own companies at the age of 15, 16. And I've joined an organization which is called the Kairos Society, which tries to foster entrepreneurship worldwide. And their application criteria in the US was running your own business, being undergraduate and under the age of 21. When they came to Europe, they didn't find anybody to join them because nobody fits to their criteria. And that is for me personally one of the key differences, that people start thinking of running their own business at the age of 20, 21, 25. And I think a recent research said that the average founder in Austria is at the age of 31 or 32. So I think when we want to really accelerate startup scene in whole Europe, we need to foster entrepreneurship on a really, really earlier stage at schools to get more people into that idea and into that scene.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Johannes?
Absolutely. I mean, there are a couple of other things which I think are very interesting. There is a big comparison between America and Europe. I mean, I think the American people, they smile at Europe.
Yeah.
The Europeans think, I mean, Jesus Christ, they don't have any history. This like superficial attitude. What I think is the biggest difference is that the American, whenever they start something, they do it by the motivation we're gonna conquer the world. If we see any hurdles, fuck it, we just do it. If we have any legal problems, fuck it, we just do it. The Europeans, they think in a much smaller scale. I think there's a good example between Uber and Car2Go, which is a fantastic service, Car2Go.
Car2Go, yes.
But up until I think 6 or 8 weeks ago, you could not use the Car2Go card in Austin,
Germany,
Texas, for example. Uber's app, the Jap guy in Tokyo opens in Vienna and communicates with the driver in Japanese instantly. So it's also a way of thinking, and that makes the Americans so successful, I think.
Interesting, yeah. Jason, would you agree with some of these comments?
Yeah, I suppose that America's still a very young country, right, compared to Austria.
You're speaking for all of America.
Yeah,
right
I am.
now.
I represent America today. I got authority from President Obama. We're still young. We're still naive enough to think that we can do crazy things. Sometimes it works out. Uber, it's working out pretty well. Other areas, perhaps not so well. But yeah, we try things. One thing I want to point out is we talk a lot about entrepreneurs, but we can't forget about what I call intrapreneurs, because while there's many hero entrepreneurs, there's also many hero intrapreneurs, and those are people that work in large companies that are building and creating businesses, products, and services within the guise of a large company, and that has a lot of value because a lot of resources there. There's distribution. There's obviously capital. There's human resources, and I think that it's easy to talk about all of the startup stuff, but there is some great things coming out of some big companies, and I've seen some great things come out of European companies that in the U.S. we just don't know about it, right? We just don't know about what's happening. For instance, one of my favorite is Bosch. So Bosch makes some incredible telematics and systems for the car that are really revolutionizing the way our cars operate. And largely Bosch is doing some things to create self-autonomous cars, right? And you can buy a Mercedes-Benz, you can buy a BMW today that's doing some spectacular autonomous things, like keeping you in your lane and keeping you from colliding from cars in front of you. And these amazing engineers at Bosch aren't getting the credit they deserve for that amazing ingenuity. So that's my 2 cents.
Daniel, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, what I've seen too is that Americans are genius at sell something. What they are good at is, if a European is talking about his company and says, hey, well, I've created something that could help you to conquer the world, and an American says, well, I've developed the coolest thing, it will raise billions and billions and you will fucking love it. And I think that's a huge difference on approaching the whole market, because 3 weeks ago there was an event talking to Y Combinator startups, and all of them raised multi-millions through venture capital. And one of the guys said that he sold to his first clients only with an animated PowerPoint presentation, which looked like his future product, but he didn't coded one line. So I think that's one huge difference on Europe and the US, and also what you were saying on Bosch. Bosch is doing great things. 500 small and medium enterprises of Austria are doing great things and are leaders in niche, but nobody knows them because they don't selling themselves.
Chris, did you want to add one more thing? Before we have one more question, because we're going to be going to break for lunch, but I wanted you to add something, and then I have one question.
It's also for risk-taking, like the US love to take risks, and Austria by far not like to take that much risks. And that's a big problem here, and I pretty much lost my point, but we'll go on.
So the last question before we break for lunch, I think this is something I'm thinking now. Now that you're entrepreneurs, you're your own bosses, could you ever work for a traditional company again? And if so, which company would it be? Let's start with you, Jason.
Yeah, so I absolutely would. As I've already mentioned, I think there's a lot of resources to be gained, right? I mean, being a CEO of a small startup is exciting, but you can go be a director level person at a giant company like a Google, and you have thousands of employees, right? And you have global reach, and you can do things that impact not just millions, but tens, if not hundreds of millions of people. So absolutely.
You would want to work for Google?
I'd be happy to work for Google, yeah.
Okay. Daniel?
Well, I think I can't imagine to work again in an Austrian, German company. What would be interesting in the future is to work in kind of Google, Facebook, or stuff like that, only to see if it really works. Because I've met some employees of these companies, but I think it's kind of different on really working there at your own, and that would be interesting.
Fascinating.
For me, it's all about learning. So
Okay.
if I find a position where I can see, okay, here I can really learn a lot. Like if I would join Uber and say, okay, I will make the sales. I'm not the sales guy, but I would love to learn it, and it's a great opportunity. I could think of that it is a possibility. And say, therefore, having very classical companies, it will be a very hard time for them to offer me something which I really want.
Yeah. Are you hiring, Johannes?
If it's a new company,
Well,
it could be
it is,
interesting.
It was an application.
There was this. Johannes, could you?
I would have the difficult to differentiate between traditional and non-traditional company anymore.
Yeah.
What I would, if I leave or left Uber, I would definitely work for a company which has a similar approach as Uber, because Uber didn't invent anything. The only thing they do is they saw an inefficiency and use the technology to sort of revolutionize this business. So if I work for someone else, I would probably go and work for a bank, because the traditional bank business will be dead soon in terms of retail stores. So they're approaching big challenges, and if they're managing to change their business model, it's the thing to do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I want to thank you, Christoph, Daniel, Jason, and Johannes. I know that it's lunchtime. I would like to offer an opportunity for questions, or you can also grab these gentlemen before you eat, or if you have, you can tweet me now, or if there's anyone in the audience, we can grab a microphone. It's your opportunity. Any questions? No, but I think this was a wonderful panel. I mean, to be your own boss takes a lot of guts. And we wanted to thank UBERALL and the conference team for allowing us to discuss this today. And thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.